I gotta make sure I remember. All right, so we're gonna do a lab in Cali. You need to go to Cali. Do I have it? Yep. We're gonna download the VirtualBox. So make sure we get this one. It's gonna take a few minutes to come down. You're going to, I'm gonna go ahead and delete this from prior. So let me start over. And then once you have your downloads, you're gonna go ahead and right click, show more options, 7-zip, extract. Doesn't take very long. So once I have it extracted, open it up, open this up, and then double click the blue file to load it into VirtualBox. I normally give it a little bit more juice. I think I'm gonna, maybe this time I'll run it as it is. Maybe 4 gig. In Cloud Core, see how that does. It didn't like what I had earlier, but okay. Once we modify whatever we need, keep network everything the default, click start. So we're gonna set up our own server or our own vulnerable web app through DVWA. There are other sources online that are provided by different people like Oracle and, you know, so you can go to those sources if you want to use their website. Just make sure that you read all the legal terms before you start it. Okay, so once I logged into Cali, so basically I extracted, I did part A. I will have to push for updates. I might have updated. Sudo app update. It's important that you do this. Otherwise, you cannot get the other applications to work. Yeah, earlier I was having issues with just connecting for updates. Okay. So it's saying that there are other packages that needs to be upgraded. So once I run the update, I might have had a repeat for step 12 here, but I'm going to go ahead and do sudo app install DVWA, which is step 13. Yes. So some version of Kali comes with DVWA. We don't want to always assume that it's there. If it doesn't come with it, you can always install it. You can do it this way. We saw this last week as well, right? So I normally use this as a base, as a target. It is easy because the package is already built, so you don't have to do too much to it. But today, since we're going to do SQL injection, we're going to add MySQL and Apache and a little bit of PHP with it. So that way, you know, in the case that you need to scan or make it a target for testing purposes, you can. Okay, so the whole point in this is to get you to fully integrate DVWA for this. All right, so I finished with DVWA installation step 13. I'm gonna turn on the service. So sudo service Apache 2. This is already installed on your Linux. And then click start. So you should not see any error there. That means that we're successful with turning on Apache. So web server requires either IIS, which is for Windows, or Apache for Linux. And we also need to turn on MySQL. So for the Linux side, we would use MySQL, which is free. Right, so you need to turn on the SQL and Apache. I normally add the PHP admin. This will require you to install a little bit. It takes a little bit of time to get all of this to work. But if the website is built with PHP, you can use this to be able to manage it. So we're gonna do sudo apt install my PHP or PHP my admin. So when you go through the installation, it's gonna give you the configuration console like this. With the Apache selection, you just press enter to proceed. So we have the Apache to already enable. So when you install this without the other two steps, you're gonna find that it's gonna not work. So you have to turn on Apache and database in order for this to integrate. All right. So it asks you, do you want to configure your database? So we're going to say yes, that's step 17. So just press enter. And then we want to put in the password for PHPMyAdmin. So for the practice of this exercise, I'm just going to type Callie. And then press enter. And then the confirmation password. Okay. So that means that the application, we're gonna have a database. We're going to have the PHPMyAdmin, which, you know, that's gonna tie back to user accounts and all of that for that particular website. And then we're going to we host it as a web server using Apache. Okay, so all of that's needed for our vulnerable application to work. So next, after we have everything, all the components in place, we're gonna start it. So last week when we did this, right, it activated as a service, but it didn't have all the database component that you had created today. Okay, so password. And then it's gonna open up the page. Okay. So once you get here, right, on your damn vulnerable web app, which is step 21, you're gonna scroll down and then you are going to go to the security options. So DVWA security right here, like that. And in order to attack it, right, you want to test it with, you know, so right now, the security level is high. So that means that, you know, it's impossible to attack it. So we want to kind of start with low. So we're gonna change it to low. So what did I click to get here? The DVWA security on the left. And then click this and change it to low. And then you can also increase the level as you practice. So it does, there's other practices that you can see. I'm sure that you've done this for some other classes, right? You can do SQL injection, you can do cross-site scripting, reflected DOM and stored, and then other attack here. So we're gonna put it to low, and we're gonna click submit. So we did step 21. And they changed this a little bit, so let's see. Indirect PHP information. So that's there. Okay, so on the left, click Setup Reset DB, which is the third option. So it tells you the overall, the version of the PHP that you had enabled. And then we don't really have a CAPTCHA. It comes with MySQL, which is what we had turned on as a service. Your host address is here. Okay. So you have to click this option, create or reset database, right? Make sure that you click that and it's going to tell you that it has to be created, because without clicking it, it won't work. So I should add that. Click create database. So that's done setting up. So that means that when you do that, it's going to make the database. It's going to put the users into that database. So now we can attack it, right? All right. So next, what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and click on SQL injection, which gives you this input field. And you're going to type in 1, submit. So with low security, my database is highly vulnerable. I have the user account information, right? So when you type in the 1, the ID is 1, right? When we click 1, we would have the input is 1. We say the ID is 1. And if you ever learn SQL, right, when you create a relational table, you have to use some form of unique ID to identify your roles, right? Your entry that you put into your database. So basically when you type in 1, this is the statement that you tell it. It's gonna select, right, from the users table where ID is 1. Right, so when we type 1, that's the ID. So what information is output? You have the account, user. The user account, admin information. Now, if you take a look at the URL, if you move your cursor all the way to the right, at the end of the URL, you see that how it puts that there. ID is equal to 1. So the parameter that you put in for your query, it also gets added to the URL. It's just how the application is created this way, right? Not all application would have that, but that means that we can inject into the URL itself. So if I change this to 2 and load it, I got it. So URL is definitely injectable, right? And you can try it with the ID is 3 on the URL. There you go. So that means I can inject on the URL or into the input field, right? Okay. Then now we want to verify if it's the same. So we did that with 2. So I changed the ID up here to 2. And then I press enter or click the go. And it shows me Gordon Brown. But what if, let's say that I go back to the ID is 1. And I put into here 2. It's still going to do the same. So that's equivalent to if you inject into the URL or if you inject into the field itself, right? Your input, it accepts your input in 2 ways, in the URL bar and also in the input field of the web application. So this web app at this point, because it's low security, it's highly vulnerable, right? It's vulnerable to SQL injection and URL injection. Okay. So for B, it says referring to the explanation of the previous step, what should be done? What would be the SQL statement of the ID is 2? So simply it would be select first name, last name from users table where ID is 2. So it's this statement, but change the value to 2, right? For 26B. Okay, so let's try to, and now we're going to enumerate so we can see how far we can go. We already tried 1 and 2. We're going to do 3, 4. That works. 5. That works. 6. Nothing. So that means I have what? 5 rows, right? Small table. Now, if you have a very large table, you're going to keep going until, right? The more information you get, right? As you go, you would record that, okay? So we want to put down the output information as we tried 3. Hack me. 4. Pablo Picasso. 5. Bob Smith. 6. Nothing. So that's the end of our parameter. Right? It won't take 6. We can try 7. Nothing. So yeah, 5 is the end. So now we can try the blind. And we can try to use Boolean with it. Do not copy and paste for these. Type it in. Okay? Because sometimes symbols are encoded differently in different applications. So, all right. So on the left, we're going to try blind injection. And we're going to use an operator with our statement. So earlier, we already know that we do the union select, the select when the ID is 1 from the table. We're going to try to do it with an A, right? And then in the OR. Equal that. Now, when it goes like this, right, that means that it's not responding, so it didn't accept it. Okay, so you can go back and then you can try to tweak it. So what we can do is we can also input in the statement like this. Maybe I need to put a space. A or use a single quotation mark and no space. Yeah. Oh, I know why I put that. Okay, so you're gonna do the or, and it's single quotation mark, single quotation mark. It's not a double quotation mark. Single, single, equal, single quotation. There you go. So I was like, why did I put that note for myself there? Okay, because I know it worked. All right. So what you're doing here, right? So what you type is you're gonna do A, lowercase, lowercase, single quotation mark, no space, type or, capital, single quotation mark, equal, single quotation. And you should get user ID exists in the database. Right? So what we're doing is the statement is where we are just looking to see if there is an ID of this in the database. That tells us it exists. So that's what we want. All right, let's try the next one. We're gonna do 1 or 1 equal 1. Let me refresh it. Yes, so it also showed the same. So it shows user ID exists in the database. Now, earlier we talked about how some attacker would look for a certain type of error. You can make it to run into errors this way, where you manipulate your query and make it to show some kind of error, right? Sometimes you don't want it to be perfect, where you want it to see what kind of error it's going to run into. Let's see if that works. You can also use capital. Yeah, I think it's caching. So let me go here and then go back. Yeah, so that's also gonna give you the same message. So if I use union select one and the @ symbol, decorator with the version, number, right? I'm not really getting any kind of version number. It's just giving me the same error message. That means that on the coding side, they're just providing the same message. So whatever error that you get, you're supposed to get some form of error. There's only one form of error message that's being used. Okay. We can also try to look to see if we can get some table information or database information. I normally click out of it and click back so it refreshes. Because sometimes it cached that and okay, so we can do the next one. Select no table name. So still the same thing. It didn't give us any kind of information about the table. I'm getting the same error, right? Yeah, so there's only one form of error. We already know that. We tried it with several statement, right? Now, let me see. Maybe I had tried this before and it actually gives me some table information. Let's try the next one. I'm gonna restart it. Sorry. Okay. Try. So whenever you restart it, you have to redo. I'm gonna try it in a regular injection and see. I'm gonna redo this one. Okay, that works. Yeah, it's just no, and yeah, you can try in the regular injection, but sometimes you have to restart it. Because it cached it, right? So it's just giving you out the same error. This is what you're supposed to see. Yeah, you can try it in the regular the SQL injection and see if that works. So it tells me it tells me that I have all plugins, applicable roles, character sets, columns, embedded roles, parameters, period, plugins, blah, 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 right? All of these. And then you got users is your table name. So you're supposed to get this for step 32, like this. And I tried it with no space here. Like this. So what I did was I had to refresh you can try it in a regular SQL injection. So click on it and then type in the query. And then sometime if you refresh and it's still spitting out the same error, then you can just restart your applications, recreate the database, like start from the prior steps. Okay. So now I'll click back to it. And then I'm gonna do the union select. I think it was the and then I'll do the next one with the host name. Yeah, that should work. So it tells me my host name is Callie. That's the system that I'm running the application or the server. And then we can try to see to find some of the field, which is the column. So we can do, you can also use cap. Yeah. So when you do the the union select database, you can find out database information. And this match up because when you go to the reset database earlier, it tells you that your database name is DVWA. And it is DVWA at localhost. Okay. Then we can try another way. Union select. And we're gonna do no comma there. Yeah, I must have a database. I misspelled. Yeah. So if you type everything correctly, it should give you also the same. Yeah. Okay, so we saw a little bit of SQL injection. Oh. Yeah, just disregard this. I meant to do some other things. That makes sense. Okay, we can leave this running because we want to have the URL here. So now let's do the next part. And I wanted to extend this part, but it is what it is. I couldn't test some of the other stuff earlier. Because I have the .py for you guys to use, but okay, we're gonna do Dirbuster. And this is already installed with Kali. If you want to know which application is installed in Kali, you can do a which command and then you just do Dirbuster. Right? And if it's installed, it's gonna tell you the path right here. So we can do Dirbuster. I didn't register that command yet. And we're gonna do a help. This is a GUI. It's written in Java, similar to some of the other applications that you've seen in security as well. You can use CLI, right? There's help options. So if you want to do like with an option like a switch, if you want to do a word list, you can do a -L like this. So to run it, you simply just execute Dirbuster by itself. And then it's gonna open this up, right? As long as your Java packages that it requires is current. So we're gonna try the URL for our DVWA. You can try HTTP, and you have to modify the URL as you go. And then we can also change how we want to do this. So by default, it's gonna brute force. It's gonna brute force the directories. It's gonna brute force the file. And then if you want to use, like a word list or something, you can browse to it. I think it comes default with the word list. But we can just simply put this in and then, oh, the list to read from. Let me see. It was in USR. Oh, we can't do this without the full repo. Okay. But you can also also traverse through the actual web app to see what kind of directory it has. But yeah, I'm gonna come back to this and let's see if it would do the URL first. Like a file, right? Yeah, I think you have to get it from their repo. So you gotta clone their repository, and then with that you should be able to have a word list. There's a default word list that comes with this app. I forgot that step, but I'm sorry. Yeah, you can also navigate when you look at which earlier, it's under that. So you can click browse. You can go here, go to the root, USR, and then share. That's where the app is. Right, and that's under, yeah, Dirbuster, right? I'm sorry, what did you say? Yeah. There's Dirbuster right here. Wordless. And then let's try medium. You can pick any of these. Oh, no point to fuzz in URL. You're missing a directory. I pick standard. Yeah, do the standard port instead of the URL. So, and click browse. Select. Drop in. To USR. Share. Dirbuster. Wordless. I just use a medium one to see what it gives me. Okay. So this is gonna take a while, right? It's gonna give you the status. So it's gonna test extension. Basically, it's generating the request. And this is really good if you want to see like the directory or the files that the website contains. You can traverse through it manually, like you can, you know, just keep putting in the URL and modifying the URL path. Or you can use something like this, right? The whole point in using this is to automate it so that way you, because as you know, you type sometime that would take a long time. Okay. So take a screenshot and then we'll wait a little bit to see if it gives you any kind of information, but and of course, like the better your system, the faster it's gonna run. So it's gonna brute force the directory and the file names. So if the server has a certain type of files, that's what the word list is for, right? It's gonna use like the common file name that you would have on the website, then it's gonna be able to display that here. And it's gonna examine like the common type. So you can select the type of word list that would be appropriate for the target that you are testing, right? Any question? So I modified the step a little bit. You have to go into the repo. So if you clone it, you just go to the directory. But if you just use the default install one, it's in the USR. That's why you should use the which command. It's gonna tell you the path to the application. Okay. And then after, when you get a little bit further along, you can answer the later questions, right? How can you apply this lab or the learn concept? So we're able to do a little bit of SQL injection to see how vulnerable our database would be. And you can increase the security level when you test it again and use the same statements to see how, you know, how the security level can change the response from the database when it accepts the query, or whether it not accept the query, right? But DVWA can go a lot more than just what we've seen today. You can use it for like brute forcing passwords, because those account, but just remember the steps to set it up, like what we've done in the earlier part. Okay. There was like a ghost in my computer earlier. I say this from a non-scientific standpoint. I try to test a bunch of other things, including .pw, the Pyong, right? And it didn't it didn't want to push updates. I was not having an IP address. It was just a total loss, like a loss of like almost an hour looking at it. But then when I'm glad that like everything works out, but shortened, because so if you give it more core and a little bit more RAM, this would be a little faster, right, for your virtual machine. Ideally we don't run it like on, because this is multi-threaded system, so it wants more core, right? Your ideal system would be like 10 core and higher. You see how many threads it's working? Yeah, because your system has minimal resources. We'll see how far we can get. We might not be able to see any kind of output from it, right? But imagine if your web application is very complex, right? And if, you know, so when you brute forcing a web application, let's say a target of a secure web application, of course, like their firewall is going to detect it. So the web application firewall is going to detect it right away. That, you know, it might not even let you submit all of those requests, so you basically just get booted out, ideally, right? But if your web application is very intensive, it has a lot of components, files, other things, right? So it would have to go through a lot of the requests and getting the response. So you would have a lot of responses, but it also take a lot of resources, right? It's a waiting game. So okay. So we get the idea, right? Answer some of these questions. And then when we get, maybe we'll let it go till like about 15-20%. We still have a lot of time left. But I'm gonna stop recording so that way my video doesn't go forever. But if you want to stop, you can also hit stop, right? Or Control C to cancel.